This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Roman Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast. Today I have with me Clodagh S.Higgins. She is a business coach and consultant for digital marketing agencies with the Growit Group based in Ireland and works globally. An ex-HubSpotter, she has worked with over 500 agencies around the world, helping them on areas of sales, marketing, services, scaling, and growth and their businesses so they can deliver exceptional results for their clients. She has written a book called The Happy and Healthy Digital Agency and hosts a podcast called Agency Life. Thank you for joining me today.
Delighted to be here and very envious of your fantastic podcast setup that I believe is attributed to your wife.
Yep, I appreciate it. Like all the thanks to her. I may have to, resource her out across the globe to build.
It's amazing. Great to be on the show with a fellow podcaster.
Thanks
no
for
pressure.
Jumping on. Yep. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
So my journey, we can go back to, 1973 if we like, but I was born in the west of Ireland and I actually started a business degree when I was 18, but I opted out and went off to the big city, to Dublin, and started working for a little old company called Dell Computers. Instead of doing the university, I did the University of Life and learned all about how a business works. It was the best 6 years I've ever had, a really great foundation. I ended up working in Ireland for 2 years, the UK for 2 years, and they moved me down to Australia. When I was in Australia, I got the opportunity to work for Sony. I was quite deliberate actually about that because I'd been in a job every few years. I like to sit down and ask myself, where do I want to be? And I'd written out the things that I wanted, and I wanted to work in consumer electronics. I wanted a company car. I wanted to be on the road. And I picked Sony, the job that they had. And so after a few years of being there, it was the first experience I got for understanding sales and marketing alignment. I had been such a sales girl and just sticking on the sales numbers. And one day I figured that if I brought the marketing team with me to my client, they did all the talking and I took the order, and it was such fun. I had a great couple of years, and that was the first time I got opened to sales and marketing alignment, and that led me to uncovering all the things that were going on at the time, which was Facebook was just kicking off for business, LinkedIn was getting some traction. And I started to open accounts and explore that whole world of what was happening online and how it was impacting people. Fast forward, after 6 years of being with Sony, I decided to go out and try some various jobs. I was doing a bit of consulting, a bit of sales for somebody else, and just kind of finding myself. And eventually that led me to opening my own consulting agency, where I was doing sales and marketing strategy and implementation and work for businesses in Australia. That was called Get Focused, and that was 2008. So I had my own agency for a very, probably for about 5 years. I was running that business in Australia itself. And one day I got a bit of a calling that I should move back home. I could see that all the tech career in all the businesses like Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, they were all opening headquarters in Dublin, in Ireland. And I sat down and I kind of looked at where I was. I was about to turn 40. I was in Australia. I had a relationship had broken up. My family was very far away. My sister and her husband and her daughter had moved home, and so my niece. And I kind of had this epiphany where I went, I think it's time to return to Ireland, close the agency, open the agency up again. I got a couple of clients, was starting to work with them. That was January 2013. And then as the world collides, I got an opportunity to work inside in HubSpot, building out their channel consulting program, which was where agencies would come on board. They would need to learn how to use the software, how to market themselves, how to do marketing campaigns for their clients. I was lucky at the same time. I actually managed to do a deal with HubSpot where I said, look, I have this agency. I would like to be a silent director in it. My friend and business partner is going to take it over, but I will just be inside in HubSpot. I'll work for you 100%, but I will have these occasional meetings about how this business is running. That was a great experience because HubSpot is an American software company who works with agencies, but they've never owned an agency, been in an agency. So I was able to look at what was going on in my business and look what was going on with agencies and be able to help on a much more sort of a rounder level. I kept getting into business discussions with my agencies. They would ask me we'd talk about sales and marketing for the first 6 months, but after 6 months, they were like, am I profitable? How do I find good talent? How do I have good culture in my agency? So that took me on a journey to actually find out who was doing a great job of running a digital marketing agency. And I started to look at the best agencies, generally in the HubSpot ecosystem. That was sort of easy to start off with. What were they doing? What were they implementing? And eventually it led to the opportunity where the Growit Group was putting together this merger and acquisition a team of building agencies in the Nordics, and they found me in HubSpot. They saw the work that I was doing on business consulting for agencies, and voila, that's where I landed 3 years ago just shy of 3 years ago, where I left HubSpot to pursue the work that I'm doing now, which is to help agency owners have the business that they dreamt of when they first started it, but somehow they ended up not getting what they wanted. And here I am today getting to talk to agency owners, help them with their business, help them with their team and their culture, and couldn't be happier with the work that I love to do and the impact that I have on their lives.
That's awesome. And I think that kind of wide variety of experiences and experiences in different geographic locations around the world can really help mold a person as an individual and as a professional, because obviously you took something away from living in each of those places and working at each of those companies. And like you mentioned, HubSpot, that unique relationship you developed in terms of still running your own thing and working for HubSpot as well.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was on the flight down to Australia, I was reading, the in-flight magazine. I always read every single one of those. I don't know why. I just love seeing what's going on. And there was a quote in it that said, it was about, if you travel, to see the world. When you travel the world, it alters your perception. You go to, when you go on holidays, you go, oh, I see things differently. When you live in another country, it completely changes you as a person. And I've had that experience multiple times. I've been very lucky to live in numerous different countries around the world.
That's awesome. And it's a little different as an adult. I mean, I came over to the U.S. as a child at 5 years old. So I was born in Ukraine and then went through Vienna, Austria, Rome, Italy, and then here. So obviously I still remember that, but it's a little different as an adult when you already have kind of your value system developed and kind of who you are is somewhat molded.
Yeah, that's right.
So what motivates you to succeed?
At the moment, what motivates me and gets me up every morning is basically the impact I'm having with the people that I work around me. I feel like at the age of, I'll be 47 this year, it took me a long time to kind of find, I've been good at sales, I've been good at marketing, I've been good at things, but the deep level of satisfaction that I have when I start to work with an agency, sometimes couples or sometimes an individual, and I can see it on their face, they're struggling, they're not sleeping well, they're fighting between each other if they're a husband and wife team. And really what motivates me now is to help them and hold their hands and tell them everything's going to be okay, because it is, to iron out those things that are very uncomfortable in their business. There's generally always some people that are causing an awful lot of disruption that the agency owner or couple have a loyalty to. I help them, resolve those issues. Maybe that person needs to move on, or maybe that person needs to be going to another role. And eventually, over the period of a few months, I've just been lucky to work with probably about 20 agencies just inside in the Growit Group. So that's very individual. That's a weekly call or going on site to visit them. The hundreds of agencies that I worked with in HubSpot, I had a good time with them, but the deep level of work that I do now, there's emotions, it's uncomfortable. It can get there can be tears, there can be arguments. But I know that if we stick together, the results that I see after a few weeks of them coming on and they've had some wins, you can see it in their face and their body language that they're happier, their company's doing better, they're sleeping better at night, their relationships are better. And I don't know if there's any better way in the world right now when I work through something with somebody and help them through that. Being historically quite a bad communicator, I was a very late diagnosed ADHDer. So I only got diagnosed when I was 35, and I realized the impact of not being able to communicate properly with the people around me due to the fact that I didn't know. Now I know, and now I know that I had something I have to work on. The importance of good communication that I keep working on every day in my life, and also what I do with the agencies that I work with to let them know that we're going to find a way out of this. That really is what motivates me at the moment, what gets me up in the morning and what keeps me going and what makes me talk to numerous agencies every single day on the podcast, or as my clients, or as prospects, or people who just generally need help.
Yeah, I think when you're impacting somebody's life and really changing the quality of life, and then obviously oftentimes there's a financial situation, it's that much more rewarding and makes it that much, I wouldn't say better, but I'm passionate about what I do in terms of digital marketing. And when you have that personal connection with a client, it's 100 times better than just a financial transaction.
Absolutely. Yeah. To physically see them change from that uptight, stressed, shoulders up, wincy kind of look to, I can see when they come on a call, I'm like, you've had a good week, let's talk about it. It's the physical benefits of that. And then the impact on the rest of their lives, because it's a difficult journey sometimes being an agency owner. And there are days that you wish you had a job, that you didn't have all this responsibility. And when things are tough at home and things are tough in the office, you've nowhere to go, and it could be really, really lonely. And I really commend, agency owners out there, what they're trying to build and the business that they have and the vision that they have. And they're such incredible people. Anything I can do to get them to where they need to be is extremely satisfactory to me.
Yeah, I agree. And you may have actually answered my next question.
Oh, no, did I?
your answer may be different, so feel free. But you mentioned that obviously you were diagnosed with ADHD and you worked on your communication. So the next question is one thing that you saw as a weakness in yourself that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today.
Yes, yeah, that was a huge one, because obviously ADHD was not a thing in schools or in the common language in the early 80s, and so if you looked at my, when I was in school, if you looked at my report card, I had the classic, what now even a lay person could diagnose at ADHD, daydreams, has potential, doesn't apply herself, can't seem to focus, but then over focuses on some things. So, and for anyone that doesn't know, like I know it's a common term, but ADHD is not about bouncing around the place all the time. It's the fact that we find it uncomfortable. Well, for me personally, I'll speak about it's I find it sometimes I have too many things on my plate and I'm focusing on lots of different things, but I'm all over the place. But then some days I can actually get completely lost in one task for 4 hours and then forget to eat or forget to switch the heating on or forget that I was meant to call somebody back. So how I flip that around is get very strategic about my calendar and planning things in my calendar to go, okay, you have an hour to do that. You have 15 minutes to do that. So the calendar has been really helpful to help me get organized. But with communication, it's something I personally have struggled with when it comes to explaining my thoughts, because there's so many of them going on at one time, and people don't understand that some ADHDers really, really do not cannot cope with being bored. So let's say a normal thing, like somebody might ask you, hey, do you want to go to that party or that gallery opening or that thing, right? And sometimes a person will say to their friend or their partner, it's not really my thing, but I'll go, right? And they'll put up with it for an hour, 2 hours or whatever. For definitely me, and I've spoken to other ADHDers, it's like a no, because we think we might be bored. We don't even know if we're going to be bored, but there might be a small possibility that we're bored or that we can't leave when we want to leave. So we end up saying no to things, and we become very, it seems like we're quite selfish, that we're not compromising, that we just don't, oh God, that's really unfair. I would do that for you. And it's like, yeah, well, that's okay. You're not going to be physically uncomfortable with the boredom because, you can't switch off. Or things like we'll go to a party and we're bored, so we end up drinking too much because we're just bored and we've tried everything else and we end up having way too many drinks. So all these kind of things that I reflected on at the very late age of 35 when I realized, oh, okay. And I started educating myself about, well, first of all, how to communicate. I can't go to that gallery opening because I'm going to be bored, and what that means to me, as opposed to going, no, explaining things a bit better. And then the journey that's led me on to understand communication between men and women as well. I was really lucky recently to uncover the teachings of Alison Armstrong, and she started off teaching about a book called Keys of the Kingdom, and then she's another book called Queen's Code. It was actually an agency couple that recommended it to me, and through that set of learning, and I'm still at a very early stage, but just learning the differences about how men communicate with women and how women communicate with men has led to some incredibly powerful conversations and has totally changed my relationship with men and the men in my life over the last year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think communication is obviously one of the biggest things as human beings, because if we don't improve on it or have something that inhibits us from, communicating to our full potential or really understanding or developing an emotional IQ to really understand, either professional relationships or, as you mentioned, relationships with the opposite sex, life is that much harder. So when you figure it out in that communication space, it gets that much easier.
Absolutely. It really does. Definitely something to work on. And even just understanding, just trying to understand one big question that I've learned, especially when it comes to the way men operate and what motivates them, and women, the way they go, oh, why did a man do it like that? He should have done it like this. But we're always striving for perfection, and we always compare ourselves with perfect people. That's something that women do all the time. We're comparing ourselves to the perfect Instagram or the perfect cook or the perfect mom, and those people are generally women. And then when a man does something that we don't really understand, we go, why did he do it like that? He should have done it like this. And it's like this perfect woman that nobody can be. Like, hell no, forget it. So really the big question that I've learned is, like, if a man does something that a woman gets upset about, you go ask yourself, there's probably a good reason for that, and see if they can find the reason, instead of going, why did you do that? Just going, try the question of, there's probably a very good reason for that. Because 99.999% of the time there is. It's just you didn't ask.
Yep, good reason and different thought process in terms of men and women and, people at different agencies, ages, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Basically process information and do things differently. So, there's not necessarily one way to do something, but you may think somebody's doing something out of spite or whatnot, but that's the way they think they should be doing it.
That's it.
So what's one piece of advice you have for the audience, personal or professional?
Personal, I would say something that I've been really, I guess I say lucky enough, but I have worked on it. I was brought up by a very strong, talented, independent woman who's in a loving relationship with my father, but he's Mr. Chill, he's Mr. Relax, and she's very strong. And she always instilled in me that I could be whatever I want to be. It's do whatever I want to do, have the life that I want to have. And I've been lucky enough to I feel every day that I am doing what I love, and I'm doing it where I love, and I do what I love. And I just came back from spending 10 weeks in South Africa because I wanted to just take a break from an Irish winter. And because I work online, I was able to pick the business up and just move it down there, rent my house here, rent a house there. And it was fairly smooth, fairly easy to do. And I guess sometimes I think people, you might want to be in a relationship, you might want to have kids, you might want your life to look a certain way. For me, this is what I wanted. I like being independent. I like being children. For me is not something I wanted in the past. I would definitely, consider foster in the future. I was just loved talking to you earlier on about your journey. It's something I would definitely consider in the future. And learn about it. And I'm keen to listen to some more of the things that you've put out. But I think there's ways of looking at your life, and you can give out about it and go, oh, I should have this and I should have that. Or you can go, what do I want now? I'm here now. What's it going to look like? And I'm a big believer in designing your life your way. Like, throw out all the rule books, throw out all the, by 30 I should be doing this, by 40 I should be doing, throw out what society thinks about. So really sit down and ask yourself, who do I want to be surrounded by? Where do I want to live? How much money do I want to earn? What am I talking about? Write it all out and design it all out like a map. And think about all the things that make you happy. And having lived in multiple different countries and having been able to pick myself up and put myself down in another country for 10 weeks and pick it up and put it back down again, it's the things that make me happy are within my control. They're the things that make me happy, like, going to the gym and meditating and talking to my family. Of course I had to do that while I had to do that on Zoom, and I had to do that on social media and all the platforms while I was away. But contact with the people that you love, your things that may fill you up, the food that you like, the activities that you like, what do you enjoy doing? You can more or less, we're lucky. I'm speaking for people like, most of the people that I know, we're lucky enough to be able to do that. And the things that you like and enjoy, they're actually not outside of you. They're actually things that you can do yourself. And they don't, generally, you'll find that they don't cost a lot of money either. So I think personally, just forgetting what anybody thinks about and what everyone's judgment, because they're all busy with their own stuff, forget about it and design your life your own way. Professionally, seeing as I talk to agency owners all the time, and this is a new audience for me, but on my own program, I'm always talking to agency owners about the 2 books that they should really get to transform their agency. And that's Traction by Gino Wickman, which is all about the entrepreneurial operating system. I have seen it transform agencies, and not just agencies, any business that doesn't have processes, procedures, good culture, a vision for the business, like all the components that make a successful business, whether that's a cafe, whether that's a multinational business or a digital marketing agency. So I always talk about how that will professionally change your actual business or how you run your team. You could be in a corporate team, and how are you going to run your team better? And I'm going to do a shameless plug because I'm here, but a happy, healthy digital agency. I've over 500 copies sold, which isn't a massive amount, but that to me is 500 people who've got the book and has impacted them. I get lovely comments about how it's helped them have a better business and, at least sleep better at night sometimes because it solved some problems in their agency.
That's awesome. And I think, like you said, it's important to kind of define your own life and don't listen to kind of stereotypes and societal norms, because you mold your life how you want to be. Because if you start doing the traditional things that you may not want to do, you're not going to enjoy life to the fullest because you're doing what other people want you to do and what society wants you to do. And that can, like you said, always change. Just because you want or don't want something now, in a year, 2 years, 6 months, that may change and you may go a different direction, and you're free to do so. But as long as you follow that kind of drive and do what's best for you, I think that's important to be happy.
Yeah, and the feedback I get oftentimes say, I've done powerlifting in the past. I took that sport up when I was 42.
Yeah, so I actually read an article. You got a record, right?
Yeah, I've got a world record in strict curl, which is the S bar, and you've got to lift it up and put it down without moving your back. I've got 32.5 kilo record for that, and I have an Irish national record for bench press of 65.5, I think it is. Oh my goodness, I can't remember. So, but when I was growing up, women above 40 we were told, once you get to 40, you're invisible. Once you get to 40, you can let yourself go. Nobody's going to look at you. You're a spinster. You're like all these things. So, as I was growing up, there was this deadline ahead of me going, and that's it. And when I turned 40, I actually walked into the doors of HubSpot. I started a new career. My boss was 25. She'd never run a business before. I had to let it all go. I had to change who I was, my thought processes, my attitude. I changed my outfit. I changed what I was wearing. I changed, not immediately, over a period of time. And what I did was then realize that when I looked around, and the comments I would get from other women and men too, and people online, or anything that I would do that was, not the norm, like powerlifting at the age of 42, like who does that? When I heard other people look at that, they went, oh, I never knew you could do different things, and it inspired them. So if you're thinking about not doing something because of what everyone else thinks, think about the impact of not doing it and who you're depriving by not doing something, and that ripple effect that it can cause. Even if you never posted one thing online, your energy, you doing something different, it has a positive ripple effect, and everyone around you needs to see that.
Yeah, I agree. So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you? LinkedIn, you can find me. It's Clodagh Higgins. Clodagh S.Higgins, I think, is on LinkedIn. My dad wanted to call me Samantha. My mom wanted to call me Clodagh. So I brought the Samantha back for my dad. Agency Life is the podcast, or growitgroup.com is the website. And thanks a million, Roman, for having me on your podcast. It's a pleasure to be on the other side. Thank you. Thanks for stopping by.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.